Hello, everybody. My name is Graham Elwood, and you are watching The Political Vigilante. So the eviction moratorium just lapsed. Now we've just got breaking news that Joe Biden got pressured enough. But I wanted to kind of go through what's been going on. Cori Bush was sleeping on the steps of the Capitol. Max Blumenthal was out there trying to ask people questions, and he got it's just madness what's going on in America. But this is from Paula Jean Swears, and it came out a little bit yesterday. Democrats have the majority. So much for the pipe dream. This is exactly one of the reasons why I left the Democratic Party. Struggling Americans don't want breadcrumbs while our leaders feast off of our struggles, Occupy Congress, and the corruption. This is full Democratic leadership. By the way, that's the thing. Like, there and I even watched like Democracy Now, and they're trying to like pin this on the Republicans. This is the Democrats control Congress, and they control the Senate as well. She also put, if the squad was sincere about their campaign promises, Cori Bush would not be sleeping on the U.S. Capitol steps by herself tonight. The fraud squad just showed up for photo ops and left. Now, this just came in today, like literally maybe an hour or so ago. For those who don't believe you that direct action works, look at Representative Cori has done. This is from Medea Benjamin at Code Pink, sleeping on the Capitol steps to force Biden to extend the moratorium on evictions. Thank you, Representative Cori Bush. Almost there. And we're going to talk about in a sec. I'm going to ask, again, this is just kicking the can down. I'm glad but it's not enough. So then Nick is a Fred Hampton leftist. Nick, we've had on the show before. And Fred Hampton leftist has a great podcast. Wait, Democrats are legit trying to pin the eviction crisis on Republicans when they have full control of the government. That's what they were trying to do. The Republicans are preventing this. Wait a minute. You control the Congress. You control the Senate. You control the White House. How are the Republicans doing this? So this is just insane. And I wanted to bring Ron Placone on here to discuss this. Ron.
Hey, Graham.
Hi. This is such madness. I mean, I'm glad Joe Biden got pressured enough and Cori Bush sleeping on the steps like that action. I guess I'm glad that the eviction moratorium is getting extended, but two things. One, when are the vote any blue will do people going to wake up to how awful the Democrats are? And this like, well, the Republicans, how are the Republicans stopping? The Republicans aren't blocking any of this. So, and two, and I'm going to get into it in a second here. We need money for rent relief.
Right. Yeah.
Like, so I mean, how do you see, this last day or so of this, and the theatrics by the squad? I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, here's the thing about that. There were some ridiculous photo op moments during this whole thing. I mean, I don't know if you saw the one picture of, it was Chuck Schumer and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I forget who the other person in the picture was, but they were listening to Chuck Schumer, and he was explaining something, and it looked like the most staged photo I've ever seen in my life. However, regardless of all that, because activists and journalists showed up, that legitimized everything. So their presence changed the game. So yeah, I am glad that happened. Like you're saying, I'm glad it happened. I'm glad there is some action. Is it anywhere close to enough? No, and I know that we're still hearing the details here, but it's a limited moratorium. Like, it depends on the circumstance, like who is still safe, basically. But if people are kept in their homes, obviously I'm thrilled. That's a good thing. People need to be given actual relief. That's the issue. But yeah, I'm glad that's happening. And as far as like your question, when are these any blue will do people going to get fed up with the Democratic Party? I think we're still waiting, because Nancy Pelosi, I mean, not only did they all blamed the Republicans, then they all blamed, or Nancy Pelosi at least, blamed the CDC. Like, she blamed the CDC. Like, it's like she was just looking for anyone she could to blame. And even AOC actually said something about that. I think it was on CNN. AOC said, well, actually, we Democrats, we have all the control. So You know, yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm glad it's something as opposed to nothing at all, but yeah, we still got a long way to go out of this mess. But it's one of those things where it's like you kind of hope for those small victories, even though, you wonder like, well, where are we going to land at the end of all this,
Well, yeah, because that's the thing. I mean, it's the thing we all talked about over a year ago, and the first stimulus plan, gave 4.25 trillion to big corporations and Wall Street and all that. And there was no rent relief in any of, there was no rent relief in that first bill that should have had rent relief. And now, and I want to show you, I want to bring this up. So, hold on here. Where's this at? So I want to bring this up real quick. So first of all, there's been no real rent relief, right? So $20 billion. This is, I just did this on a search engine. According to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, it would cost $20 billion to end homelessness in the United States. That's the homeless issue, which is only going to get worse whenever this moratorium ends, right? And we all know that, hey, the democratically controlled Senate just gave Joe Biden an extra $25 billion. An extra $25 billion for the war budget. So that right there, just that money alone, we could have $5 extra billion, which is the cost of what it cost, Jeff Bezos's cock rocket to fly around Earth for 4 minutes was. So there's that. This money for war could end homelessness. But then there's this article, a historic eviction crisis is coming. And this came out July 28th. So like last week, in the next days, a housing expert warns. And they interviewed this woman, Eleni Benfer, is a visiting professor of law and public health at Wake Forest and the chair of American Bar Association's Task Force Eviction Committee on Eviction. So these are all the stats going into this. So again, and it's staggering. It's staggering. So the share of adult renters who remain behind on their housing payments is around 16%. And that hasn't been dropping. With all this stuff opening up and people going back to work, it hasn't been dropping. And one of the things, the last stimulus bill had $45 billion in rent relief. Apparently only around $3 billion out of the $45 billion Congress has allocated in rental assistance has reached households by the end of June. And of course, it's bureaucracy and nonsense. Why wasn't everybody just given, like they did in Canada and Australia and a bunch of other countries? People were just given like $3,000 a month. We were demanding for UBI last spring when the shutdown first happened, demanding it, couldn't get it. Eviction makes it incredibly challenging too. That's the other thing about eviction. It's not that you just don't have a place to live. It makes it challenging to secure housing in the future because it creates a mark on a person's record. Eviction prevention must be our national priority. Without it, we'll see multi-generational impacts that our country will be hard-pressed to ever recover from. So, Ron, I bring this to you because, like, this again, like you say, keeping people in their homes, that Biden stepping in on the moratorium, great, but this isn't, the $45 billion isn't even reaching people.
Right, yeah.
Why is this so complicated? Like, well, this should have been handled last year. People should have been having their rent paid, and we know this. Well, first of all, had they given a bunch of people last year during the first CARES Act money for rent, then the landlords, because a lot of landlords are just small business owners. Some of them are big corporations, but a lot of them are just small business owners. They're just like a married couple that bought they had a little extra money. They bought a rental property.
Right.
They had a room to rent, or they converted their garage into a studio apartment or whatever. They bought a 1-bedroom condo and rented it out and made a little side income. So when people lost their jobs because of COVID and couldn't pay their bills and weren't given rent relief, then the landlords are jammed up. The landlords are in forbearance with the mortgage companies, because they haven't been receiving rent, so they haven't been able to pay the mortgage. So what this woman is talking about is things that I've talked about on this show, I'm sure you have on yours, about there's this huge house of cards coming. There's going to be this awful domino effect. So extending the moratorium is great, but what's really, okay, the moratorium is going to end eventually. What's going to happen? Just more photos on the steps of the Capitol building? What are they going to do?
Right, yeah. Well, that's the thing. our UBI went to Wall Street and we watched it happen. They had this insane upward transfer of wealth. There are, I mean, yeah, are there some landlords who are just, mom and pop people who just have one investment property? Totally. There's others who are these big developers who are still finding ways to kick people out of their homes, and they're straight up predators. And I think this really, if we want to get into the theme of it, there is no way to entertain the value or principle that housing is a human right in a system like ours. That's why it's so ridiculously tragically comical to see these politicians tweeted, "We're united on our stance that housing is a human right." No, you're not. You can't guarantee housing is a human right under the system we have here in the United States that allows for for predatory housing practices to take place, that allows a system in which 40% of homeless people are employed, that allows a system where housing is unaffordable pretty much everywhere. You can't afford an apartment anywhere on minimum wage in this freaking country. It's our system that allows all this to happen. And me personally, I mean, I'm at the point, I don't think private property should be a thing. And when I say that, I don't mean this is not my shirt. This is my shirt. But I think when it comes to land and property, people should be in possession of it. They shouldn't own it. And it should be kind of orchestrated to guarantee housing is a human right. I understand that's not a change I will ever see in my lifetime. So what I would rather see is, something like what they do in other countries where they really don't have these problems, or at least nowhere near to the magnitude that we have. I mean, you look at places like Denmark, some of countries like that, all of their quote landlords are people in the, hey, we're a couple who has one investment property type situation. You're not allowed to become some big time developer in a place like that. It's against the law. You're also not allowed to have, more than a handful of properties. I think in a lot of those countries, you're allowed to have your primary residence. You're allowed to have like maybe one rental property. And then if you have anything else, it has to be like a lake house or something like that, like a house specifically used for vacation. And you got to prove it basically. So there's other countries where, well, private property does still exist as far as housing is concerned. They have a lot more rules and regulations that protect people, and they don't have the homelessness crisis that we have.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing that I feared a little over a year ago when the CARES Act first came out is I said, be careful. They're going to use this as a land grab like they did with the housing crisis, because this is what happened over 10 years ago. These big management companies, developers, but mainly property management companies, they did this in California. I did videos on this. They bought up short sales and foreclosures, right? And then started renting those out. That's one of the reasons the rents have gone so. And that wasn't just California. This happened all over the country. But the main reason California's rents are so high is specifically they bought up people that were behind, were facing eviction, or, and wanted out. A short sale is better for your credit rating because an eviction stays on your credit for a long time. I can tell you, or a bankruptcy, or foreclosure. Well, bankruptcy and evictions all stay on there. I personally had a foreclosure and a bankruptcy on my credit, and it was on there for a long time. And so they went to people who were like behind and we're facing foreclosure and said, we'll buy it out. We'll give you a little money, a little cash for keys and all this. We buy homes. You saw those signs everywhere. And that's what's going to happen now. So Biden just extends the moratorium. I bet you he just got a bunch of phone calls from all these big donors that went, wait a minute, Joe, you're supposed to kick these people out because we want to scoop up all their homes. Because the ruling class just can't get enough. They are like crazy crack addicts that never get enough. They've got all of our money. They've got us all in debt. They want to take up all of our homes, and now they want to kick us out. And they want to get rid of the mom and pop landlords as well. I'm sure of it, because it's like, we got to get those people out of the equations, because, those people might be nice to their tenants. They might go, oh, we don't want to charge you too much or whatever for rent. They want to kick them out so they can gouge people rent. And if they own the majority of the property, then that's a monopoly and they can raise rents. That's what they can do. And so this really seems very coordinated, and eventually they're going to end this moratorium. Eventually it's going to end. And what? More stimulus money that just is caught in some Byzantine pipeline. I mean, you see it in LA. There is rent relief. You got to apply for it. It's this very lengthy process. You got to submit all these documents, and some people have gotten it, and great. And if you're in this position and they have rent relief in your state or your city, try to get it. But I know some people, and it is really difficult to get, rather than just, they can just send us checks in the mail. They can direct deposit all this money. Why can't they just go, here, you're behind on your rent, here you go, like they did to Wall Street?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And we should have, I mean, I think there's still that push that we could have for like a, what do you call it? Like a backdated emergency UBI. I mean, I think it's like every single American should be given, a backdated UBI similar to what other countries got, and just be given that lump sum. But no one with any power is even talking about that.
No.
Kind of thing. I mean, no one, like, you can't even utter the words. And it's been like that the entire time. I mean, it's even during the election season, they weren't talking about that. They weren't talking. Republicans were talking about it. Democrats were talking about it. I mean, how telling was all that? Where Democrats proved that they hate the American people so much they were willing to risk losing the White House again to make sure that there wasn't somebody in the office who might want to help people. They put up the only person who might be able to lose to Donald Trump, which was Joe Biden. They put him up because they'd rather have that than someone like Bernie Sanders who would actually try to help people. And Republicans, they proved that they hated the American people so much, they're willing to lose the White House to make sure they don't have to help you. If they would have issued an emergency UBI, Donald Trump would still be president. They knew that. Think they don't know that? Mitch McConnell, they all knew that. They don't give a shit. They're like, no, we're not gonna. No, if it means helping people that much, we'll risk losing the White House. Joe Biden's pretty much ideologically the same as us anyway, and that's why it really is a one-party system. When Wall Street owns both of them,
yeah, there's no difference. There's no difference at all. And neither party, like you said, when Trump and the Republicans had control, they didn't give a shit about it. They weren't going to do a UBI during this pandemic, and they were going to send a $1,200 check. And that was that. And then, we can't get anything. And yeah, they should be backdating this, and they could give it directly to the landlords. They could figure out a way to do this. They could say, you have to use this money to pay back rent. And it would make the landlords whole. The banks would get their money. The banks who've been, in forbearance on all of these loans would be getting their money. So eventually Wall Street the banks would still get money. They just wouldn't, they'd get it after people got helped and bailed out, which is what should happen when a pandemic hits and the government shuts everything down and tells you can't work. Then the government should be paying you to stay home. Which is so insane.
That's how it should have been the past year. I mean, that's how it should have been. And Biden could forgive student loan debt. We don't even talk about that anymore. He could be doing more on climate change. We're not even talking about that anymore. He could legalize pot. We're not even talking about that anymore. I mean, just all these things where it's like you're doing nothing to help people during such a desperate time. Kids are still in cages, no minimum wage, no health care. And, they're finally conceding a little bit to keep people in their homes. And the only reason that is happening is because a bunch of people showed up in D.C. And it's the people, I think, that really made the difference. And I'm glad that the politicians were there, because the fact that the politicians were there, I mean, Max Blumenthal was talking about this earlier. The fact that the politicians were there meant that the cops weren't cracking heads.
Right.
When elected officials show up, and then because they're there, a bunch of people show up and they're like, well, we're going to legitimize this, and we're going to be here too. Well, now the cops can't crack heads because there's a bunch of officials there. So, it's, again, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm not glad that people are going to stay in their homes, and I'm not glad that of course I'm glad about that, but we have a long way to go, and at least we're seeing now like what direct actions can do that they can only ignore so much. And we're seeing things not just on the federal level, but also like on the state level, and then of course on the local level too. We're seeing things here in California that I've brought up a lot. Gavin Newsom's a little scared right now. He's a little afraid of this recall, and he's a little scared. And all of a sudden, he's starting to deny fracking permits. He's starting to talk about this broadband. All of a sudden, we had $7 billion to have the best infrastructure package in the freaking country, one of the best in the world. All of a sudden, he just found it. It's just under a couch cushion. What are you going to do?
Weird.
You know, and I get these text messages, and I get it. They're just from volunteers. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to bark at a volunteer or anything like that. But they text me, and I text them back, and I'm going, look, is he going to support the single payer bill? I like that he's starting to turn down some fracking permits. Is he going to continue? Is he going to roll back the ones he already approved? How about this broadband infrastructure? Are we going to get delivery on that? Is that for sure? He has my back. Prove it. Prove it. And if he has my back and he proves it, I'll have his. You want my vote? Come freaking get it.
Come get it. Give us single payer healthcare in the state of California, something that Anthony Rendon and the rest of the state Democrats voted down in 2017. Give us, we should have single payer healthcare in the state of California. We could absolutely have that. It has the fifth largest economy in the world. So of course we can do that. So she'll get my back. I ain't voting for, I don't care to support him in the recall. I don't give a shit if they recall. I don't care right now. If he's going to really actually be for real on the environment and not just, pay for teeth whitener while he hands out fracking permits, then I don't care. Then they'll recall him and put some dipshit Republican in there, and then he'll get voted out, and they'll put some dipshit Democrat back in there, and these two idiot parties will just be putting dipshits back in and forth and then in and out, while Californians will keep getting screwed over. So,
you know what's awesome? Revolving Dipshits has an R and a D. When you see RD, Revolving Dipshits. This is a t-shirt we need to make.
Yes.
We need to have like Revolving Dipshits.
Yes.
Oh man, sorry, I don't always look at the chat, but I kind of caught something out of the corner of my eye. Thank you, Cam35. I tried the blueberry in the freezer that you mentioned. It's like little popsicles, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it? Dude, it's the best. Do you pop your blueberries in the freezer and then eat them?
I put them in my smoothies, and sometimes I'll put cold blueberries on hot oatmeal, and it is.
Oh, there you go.
It's fantastic.
You're so fancy. Well, what about did you try my other? Well, here's another trick if anyone's interested. And I love doing this. I do this all the time now. I think I've said this before, but I'll repeat it again in case anyone's interested. Peel the top half of an orange, leave the bottom peel on, so it's like a bowl, and put it in the freezer, and then take it out of the freezer once it freezes, and you eat it like you're eating ice cream or sorbet rather out of a bowl. It tastes like you're eating. It's so good. It's nature's candy. It tastes like you're eating sorbet. So good.
You brought this up when we did You Should Know This last week, and I haven't had a chance to do it yet, Ron, but I will, since it seems like it's a life-changing event.
Yeah, dude. I mean, seriously, because sometimes, like, you know how like oranges will get a little old and like they're not bad, but they're kind of like they shrivel a little bit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like when they get that, they're still yummy. You could totally, if an orange is a little, and you're like, oh, this orange is a little old. It's not bad, but it's probably not going to be all that enjoyable. Instead of just taking it straight to compost, folks, what you do, you take the half off, you freeze it, you eat it like this. I don't have shoes on right now. I am barefoot right now, giving you great advice on how to preserve an orange before the peel becomes compost back to Mother Earth.
So if I hear this correctly, what you're saying is you're giving this orange second life. It's kind of like those Nutrigenics ads where those older athletes are taking testosterone boosters, and they talk about how it helps their love life.
Same. Yeah, this is the exact same thing, really. This is like steroids, but for oranges.
Okay, cool. I'm just trying to put it into terms I understand. Thank you so much. Well, I know you probably got to go soon, Rob, but we got tour dates. We got tour dates,
Graham. Yes, we do. We have a lot of them, and they start in September. Do not wait. Get your tickets now. San Francisco, Sacramento, Los Angeles. We'll be here, home in Los Angeles. We'll have a lot of special guests there. We'll also be in Tucson, Tempe, Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Philly, New York City, DC, Asheville, North Carolina, Jacksonville, Gainesville, Orlando, Miami, Tampa, Nashville, Louisville, Indianapolis, Chicago, Minneapolis, Madison. Don't wait. Get your tickets now. Romplacone.com or GrahamElwood.com for tickets. And hopefully we'll have some news on Atlanta soon. We're still finalizing a few details, but all those cities I just mentioned have been announced and tickets are available. Romplacone.com, GrahamElwood.com. Yes, Andy, Madison, Wisconsin, baby. We had a fun time there the first time. We'll be back.
So check that out. And then go watch Get Your News On with Ron and enjoy that programming.
All right. Ron Placone on all the socials, folks. Good talking to you, Graham.
All right, buddy. You got to run?
All right, man. Be well.
All right, man.
Peace.
Bye. Hey, everybody. It's Graham Elwood. We are going on the road, Ron Placone and I, in September and October. Check GrahamElwood.com for tour dates. Probably coming to a city near you. A lot of these shows have sold out in the past. We haven't been on the road in a year and a half because of the pandemic. Come out and join us. The post-pandemic comedy tour. Go to GrahamElwood.com for tickets. New cities being announced every day. Join us and support what we do at patreon.com/GrahamElwood and rockfin.com/GrahamElwood. Blockchain cryptocurrency platform. Thank you. You're making Gotham great again.